Roger Day.
You might not know the name Henry Turtle, but he knows many famous people. He went to school with Jeff Beck. He's got a new album out. We find out all about Henry Turtle on the programme. The classic album of the week is Caribou from Elton John, and the best in country at 9 with Steve Shirell.
Roger Day.
Tonight from 7 on BBC Sussex.
Cheers, Roger. Obviously going on, and so much talk about animals. Just a reminder that tonight Roger Day is talking to Henry Turtle. It's not a turtle. Nice Hawaiian. And Henry Turtle on the show tonight.
Indeed. He's got a few stories to tell. I've just been talking to him. He's arrived already. And an album out, which we'll talk about. And our paths have crossed quite a few times in the past. No doubt that'll come up. And also we have Elton John Caribou, the classic album, and the Squawk It is the future classic album. And we have country tonight with Steve Shirell.
It's all on the way. And Henry went to school, didn't he, with Jeff Beck?
I know.
That's cool.
Yeah. I think Eric Clapton was around as well, so it must have been something in the water around that place.
As you do. More great stories. Brilliant.
Bless her. Haven't seen her for a while. Welcome. Hi, hello, how are you? This is Roger Day, Twiggy Boy, thinner record spinner, with you right through until 10 o'clock tonight. Henry Turtle guesting beyond about 7:30, talking about his album and some good things he's been doing in the past. We like that sort of thing, some good tales to be shared with you. Okay, let's go back to old times when there was a place called the Uppercut Club where I was a disc jockey, and this band actually played there. So let's listen to the Doves.
Sunshine, glow up the night, and now it's time. These visions are here to see. Winds of brass, they wink their eyes, and flowers are talking to butterflies. They don't seem to realize that I'm free. Are you here with me, girl? Now you're here, I'm in a different world. I'm coming down. Glow up the night, and now it's time. These visions are here to see. Are you here with me, girl? I'm in a different world. I'm coming down.
Well, they are very much of the time. I've never actually heard that before. Must have missed me by when I was running around with long hair and chasing young ladies and those as we did. But anyway, the Doves they were, and here he is. Paths have crossed many times. It is Henry Turtle.
Good evening, good evening, good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm absolutely sparkling this evening. It's been in my corporate days, I used to sit in my car, stuck on the M25 in my suit and tie, and listen to your shows. So I'd like to give all those chaps stuck out on the M25 now a bit of advice. Get out the car, throw the company car keys over the hedge, get that suit off, and start again. The world becomes Technicolor, Cinerama, and VistaVision if you do.
Outrageous. It's true. Old hippies never die.
I'm not an old hippie.
I have. You're a young hippie then. Yeah. I have this vision of the M25 being clogged up with abandoned cars, and you'll get the blame for it now.
Get my collar felt.
You're a troublemaker. Yeah. So there you go.
No, really.
We like troublemakers because I guess you learnt your trade from Viv Stanshall, because there's a man that could cause a fight in a monastery.
Well, that was amazing. I picture this naive 17-year-old venturing up to Central School of Art and Craft, and the first people he comes in, I sit down next to this chap I had my suit and my tie and I was looking immaculate, and there was this rotund gentleman in a three-piece ginger suit. And he really was quite tubby, but he had a crew cut and little glasses, and he took to me immediately, and he told me just come out the Merchant Navy, and we had so many sort of adventures around. I mean, the most ridiculous one, I'll tell you what he was like, okay? Yeah. He said, Henry, he said, have you got any money? I said, well, I've got a few bob. He said, well, let's go to the Cheshire Cheese. That was just off Leicester Square. I've got to meet this Johnny from the BBC, and I need a bit of support. So we pottered from Holborn, where Central was, down to the Cheshire Cheese, and we sat down with a guy called John Waters.
John Peel's producer.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. Lovely bloke. Came from up north somewhere. And next to us parked an American family. And Viv went up to the bar and he said, I'll have a jacket potato with beans and a bit of cheese and a pint of real ale, please. And we sat down, and I had probably an orange juice or something, because we didn't have much money. And this American chap said, hi, he said, we're new, we've just arrived in the UK. You look a very unusual couple of gentlemen. I mean, and Viv said, oh no, I'm just typical English, dear boy. He said, well, tell me, he said, what are you having to eat? And Viv said, well, I had a jacket potato and a pint of beer, real ale, actually. Right, he said, I'll have 5 of those as a family. And he went up and ordered. Well, ours came first. And I knew when Viv was up to something. We'd be on a tube train, for example. I'll come back to that. Yeah. And the bloke opposite would tut at us. Yeah. And he'd tut. And because one thing I did have before all the rest was long hair. Not for any reason, it was just like that. But I always was pretty dapper and young and beautiful. And he would set fire to their newspaper on the tube. Or he would do all sorts of things. And then ending this thing, this American chap was watching Viv as his food arrived, and I knew he was going to do something, and he picked up, Roger, the jacket potato and dipped it in his beer and ate it. And when the American chap's food came, they all did exactly the same. And he was dead straight. And then we landed at my mother's house, and she said, look at you, you look like a couple of flowers, blooming pansies. And I don't want any trouble from you, to Viv. Well, Viv wandered off. We went, I don't know where we went. We came back, and we were too late to go anywhere, and he fell asleep, and he undid his waistcoat, his shirt, his trousers, and he was laying in a chair in the morning, snoring. Really, I could hear him up in my room. But what he did was his roll-up dropped onto my mother's new carpet.
Oh dear.
And the last I saw of those two, she was chasing him up Cheam Bypass with a saucepan.
Oh, for mobile phones with cameras. That would have been a joy to do. Don't go away. I'm back with you in a moment. We better do some of this.
Travel.
BBC Across the South.
Here's a man who's never been chased up the road with a saucepan. This is Alan.
How do you know? M25
Well, I'm just assuming.
Well, yeah, actually, you're right. Anti-clockwise, very slow from before jumping.
That's Rosetta Hightower. You'll find out the link in just a moment. But anyway, that's the All-Ons, and it's called Don't Hang Up. I thought the All-Ons sounds like a set of nylons, but hey-ho. And we're with Henry Turtle, who's singing with Rosetta on a record we'll play a little bit later on. Tell us about the early days, Henry, because you used to... you were recommended, if I get it right, for the Marquee Club, wasn't it, by Eric Clapton, I think?
Well, yes, I was. What happened was I was working in my school holidays in this shop in Epsom, and it had an open front when I was at Central, and this gorgeous girl came in, picked an apple off the top of the pile, took a bite, and asked me to take her out that evening.
So unique chat-up line?
I didn't say any. I said yes, of course. We went and saw the Stones down at Alpine. Yeah. Wonderful, laying out on the grass there, and then to look forward to in the evening. And that was when they were at their best. Well, it moves on to my first day at Central, when she didn't trust me. I was really young then, but I was also extremely beautiful.
And frisky.
Yes, and now I'm old but very happy.
But still frisky.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on very quickly, we bought the first Stones album in Imhoffs in Tottenham Court Road, and walked down Wardour Street, and out of this black doorway came all this cranky, beautiful blues guitar. And Bridget had rather a large décolletage. Oh. And she had a very low-cut job.
Chesty lady, then.
Yeah, but she was great fun. She was at St Philomena's Convent in Carshorten Beaches at the time.
Lovely.
Yeah, and we walked in, and Eric came up. He had a red Telecaster, I always remember, and a crew cut. Yeah. And he came up to us, because we came through the darkness, and he said, "Oh, hello," and he didn't even look at me, shook my hand, and you know where his eyes hit. And he said, "You look as if you..." Over the conversation, he said, "You look as if you'd like to be in a group." And I said, "Well, I'm pretty good. My parents threw me out from playing my instruments at home, but I practiced diligently in Millet's shop doorway in Cheam High Street." And he said, "Well, the band that supports us, we're just taking over from the Stones here at the Marquee Friday night, needs a singer, and you look the part, if you're any good."
It's incredible.
And he introduced me to these two brothers, the Alexander brothers, and that night I was in the support band, which was wonderful, supporting the Yardbirds. And I'd already had a little ding with them, with Clapton, because they used to do the Star in Croydon on Saturday nights, and we'd all go over there to see them. And when Keith, bless him, got asthma,
which he did,
I took his place. There was a guy called Mick, tall, very good-looking chap, who the guys, especially Samuel Smith, hated. And that night up at the Marquee, the first night I was with the Authentics, he put this awful, cheap keyboard, Farfisa Compact, where you screwed the legs in, and he wanted to do a Georgie Fame with the Yardbirds, with him at the front. And I remember Samuel Smith edged the legs off his keyboard, so when time to play it was collapsed, and he'd do two songs and they'd elbow him off. So they used to that was it. That was my start with Giorgio Gomolski's Yardbirds / Authentics. And that's how Eric, he got me the job.
Fantastic.
He just said, he went up to one of the Alexander boys, and they said, "Get up, have a go." And I had my harmonica, of course, 3 up from the key of probably A or E. I had 2. And I was off, and that's how I ended up fronting the Stones. That night I came... You see, my parents were in the RAF.
All right.
And everything had to be done, that way. Yeah. And we had a guitar at school. There was, in my class at school, when we were 13, there was Jeff Beck, There was Ian Boycell, he joined the Searchers, or Tony Jackson's variation on that. And we all had a little group on Beddington Lane Holt railway station. And we'd get in there around the fire, because the last train went at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And Jeff would pedal over there. I remember once he pedalled from Domains Road in Wallington, where he lived, over there to give my mate Bud Taylor some Brill cream. And it's nice of you to say that I was at school with Jeff Beck. That's wrong. He was at school with me.
Of course. Let's play something that was played a lot on radio too. This isn't on the new album, but it's going to be on the next one, I understand.
Creeping home before daylight.
Sarah Kennedy's favourite record. She wanted to marry you, didn't she?
She did say on the air, I have it on my iPod. She was lovely. I really like. She used to play that nearly every morning on Radio 2. Oliver and we'd all be off on our holidays with Tina, Ollie, and I, and there we'd be on Radio 2. The last thing we heard in Blighty for 4 or 5 weeks was Sarah Kennedy playing Footloose and Fancy Free again, which but that's the first time I've heard the extended version, which I thank you for enormously.
I only play full fat versions. I don't do edits.
Oh, that's fantastic. You're absolutely, I don't know what the word is, you're unique. And I'm not a creep. Anyone who knows me will tell you I'm not.
Yeah, who want to copy this? Hey, good evening to Vic from Chelmsford near Winchester. He's sending a letter to the BBC. He says, how can they let you go? I know. He says, the Lady of Shalott, sung by a Canadian country or folk female singer. If I could play it again. Yeah, I've played it before, I think. And Derek from Christchurch. Oh, this is sad. He and his wife has just passed away. Love listening to the country, he's dedicated a song to late wife Sheila. You're My Best Friend by Don Williams, if possible. Do you know that's my dad's favourite record as well?
Oh,
bless him.
lovely.
Sadly no longer with That's the thing. There's a lot of people who don't realise how important the radio is to people as a companion.
Well, it is. When as I told you, in my corporate life, I would be driving home, and the one thing I'd look forward to, honestly, that's why I really am thrilled to be here. I've been on lots of stations in the last week, but this was the one what did I say, Oliver? The one that I wanted to do. And when we got a call from you to come in, I thought, wow, that is the geezer. I've been looking forward to it all day.
You must have very low standards, Henry.
No, but 7 o'clock, tune in to you. And all my chums did, right across, you know. And because the music is not off a computer. You play whatever you feel. And it's nice, you know, and the interviews you've done. We paid our subscription and our iPlayer. I've got over 60 of your shows at home. And I only got rid of 1 or 2 because I ran out of room. Oliver had to buy I get all the plays off Radio 4 and this, that and the other. But I think it's absolute madness. You're part of the day.
I didn't pay him to say that, by the way. I'm filling up. I'm almost an embarrassed flush here.
Well, let's talk about something else.
Look, that's enough about me.
Can I make my complaint?
I'll tell you who to write to.
No, my complaint was today. It's been gorgeous because I've been driving along and I've been on with that Footloose and Fancy Free advertising the programme. And it says on there that I was at school with Jeff Beck and I wasn't. He was at school with me.
I know.
I don't, you know.
It's good boy. You see, they're too young to realise no respect for us senior citizens. But
no, quite. Well, Jeffrey was great to be at school with. You know,
was he good then with the guitar?
He was. He taught. We only had one guitar between about 4 of us at one time, and as I said, he was quite. But the one way he got a guitar was we had an art teacher. We were in the arts stream at 13,
right,
and he and I and a couple of others were probably the scruffiest people ever to be seen, because all the others were sort of short-haired and all this. And Jeffrey, I always remember, first we had this guy called Vic Freeborn. Jeff, if you're listening, I know you're laughing your head off at the name. And he was an ex-PE teacher, guy in the RAF, and he had ginger hair, and he had the hugest ginger moustache you've ever seen, and he didn't like us. And he'd suddenly be in the middle of an art lecture on Cézanne or Renoir, and he'd do a handstand. And all
like my kind of teacher.
And all his money would fall out, and his keys. And this first day, you see, there we all were, and I sort of was friends with Jeffrey because we were the only ones who didn't have school uniform.
Oh, right.
Because of my parents. His mum was quite posh. She lived in Wallington in Domains Road, and he had a sister called Jen who had an armful of Gene Vincent records and a big motorbike. Anyway, there was our first still life oil painting set up, fruit, flowers, and in the middle was a guitar. And it was a belter. And I saw Jeff, he asked if he could play it in the lunch break. No, said Vic Freeborn. The next day I came into school to continue our still life painting. I was heavily into my Cézanne. And 2 things were missing from the still life.
The guitar.
And Jeff.
That's enough for now. We'll talk to you after the 8 o'clock news, and we've got a bit of this to do as well. There it is. My guest tonight, Henry Turtle, who's been around a bit. And that's... How ironic you should do a Turtles number.
Well, maybe I did the originals.
Oh,
Some girls like to run around, like to handle everything they see.
You did the Uppercut Club where I was a disc jockey. I introduced the Turtles on stage there.
Oh, they didn't do they didn't actually sing on the singles.
Did they not?
No way. That was done by Terry Melcher.
Oh.
For White Whale in California, in the mid-60s, on
Doris
session
Day's son, of
basis,
course.
correct. Terry will tell you who sung on those, and he's not far from you at this minute.
All right.
Imagine me and you. They wanted an English voice, and I got, and they paid good session.
Ah.
And there was no backing track, there was just a guitar, and...
They were pretty good live, though.
Yeah, but they weren't the people who were on the record. It's like Edison Lighthouse. That was Tony Burrows. It's like Give Me That Thing. That was Tony Burrows. It's like My Baby Loves Loving. I was there when he did them. Tony Burrows.
This will amuse you. I was offered the gig to be a Pipkin.
Were you really?
Yes.
You'd have been great. That's Roger Greenway.
Because somebody we were just talking about, sadly no longer with us, David Bridger, who used to,
bless him.
one of the great characters of all time, my former brother-in-law, he used to tour around with David Cassidy and people like that. And he was a singer, and they offered the Pipkins, as you know, Roger Cook, Roger Greenway, but he didn't want a gig, and they needed people to go around to sing.
Yeah, that's right.
And David was up for it as well, and he says, what about you being the other half? I said, I can't sing, David. I said, I'm too busy playing records. And I could have been a Pipkin.
Yeah.
With all those baggy trousers and that sort of thing.
But as you know, since those days, the studio time was so expensive, and they couldn't afford to have people. They used to call me One Take Turtle. And I did. And I do, Ollie will tell you.
A good listening friend of mine, Mick Abbott, who's on the Albion in Bolton-on-Chelsea playing his guitar 3 o'clock on Sunday, and he's threatened to buy me a pint. That's an invitation I'm not going to refuse, Mick. He's written in and said, what a lovely interview with Henry. Just had a quick look at his biography. My kind of bloke, I reckon. I'm interested to hear his new album. Well, here it is. It's called Henry Turtle, cover shots, including the new single, Happy Together, and Henry is looking very dapper on the front of it. And it's www.henryturtle.co.uk, and a picture of him looking very suave and sophisticated on the back. Rosetta Hightower's on that as well, isn't she?
Rosetta's on 4 tracks. Ollie found a version we did of It's Now or Never in the shed over Christmas.
Oliver, please. He doesn't like being called Ollie.
Thank you very much. That's
his son.
He's wonderful. It was his 21st birthday yesterday.
Oh, congratulations.
And we're a bit frayed at the edges today, but we wouldn't miss this for anything. Yeah, Rosetta Hightower, what a great... That was Ian Green's wife.
Really?
Yeah, and I worked at Surrey Sound Studios, where we did Police, Susie and the Banshees, Hazel O'Connor, The Cure. In fact, a couple of guys from The Cure are on that album, on the Pretty Flamingo track. And also on that track is Chris Glenn from Alex Harvey, Rod Diath from Rory Gallagher, brilliant drummer.
Well, he'd need to be able to play with Rory Gallagher.
Shirley and Pepsi and DC Lee are on the Happy Together track, doing the backing vocals, because we were doing Wham at Eden. We were recording them. And when they finished on the Pick Me Up Before You Go, I asked them if they do the backing vocals on Happy Together. And they got hot. Sorry, they got...
You used to, of course, work at very famous studios as well, and in which time you used the police equipment, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
You naughty boy.
No, they wouldn't have minded.
Tell us about that story.
Well, a lovely guy called Nigel Gray, doctor friend.
I know, yeah.
And another guy called Nick Smith, whose father was Norman Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Now, he engineered all the Beatles records.
Hurricane Smith.
Yep. And Wally, we used to call him. He's in heaven now, worse luck. But he was a fabulous bloke. Now, Nick was one of the best engineers, but Nigel was the one. And when he touched those 8-track faders, it was pure magic. It was just... And he'd say, Henry, go up and get the tape. We've got a new band. We used to hare around London trying to get people to use the studio. Godley and Cream came in and booked for six months, I think it was. And Nigel would send me up to go and get the tape, because it was all dodgy, 2-inch tape, but it was all second-hand. So I'd go up the loft, and it was like, on the second time I went up for the White Outlanders album, it was like getting a canvas for a Renoir or a Degas, you know? And the first album, nothing happened. They were destitute. They were sleeping and living at the studio. When Richard Branson, I think, this might not be right, but I think he got Gordon's Publishing, or Sting as he was then called by, and everything went whoosh. And all this new equipment arrived. But my deal there was I had the downtime to record these songs that you've got in your hand there on that CD. So, of course, I go in there and everything would be set up like Stuart's kit, and so they helped me out on some of the tracks too. There was one track that they nicked off me, and Ollie found it, because at those days a cassette was a valuable thing. But what they do is they take work in progress home on a cassette.
All right.
And I would pinch the cassette. And Ollie found this one, and it had work in progress on the first album. But there's me there on a guitar. I'll stand back a bit and I go, somehow I've got to keep my head above the water, clinging to the wreckage, clinging to the wreckage.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. And I wonder where that was my song before they wrote that song that it sounds like. And we've got it on the cassette.
Let's listen to some other group now. I do hope they're doing that on their tour. They're coming over here soon at the end of September. They probably will, I should think. The Beach Boys' 50th anniversary tour, and we're all looking forward to that. And that's for Tina Turtle, which sounds like a made-up name, but it's not. It's your lovely wife, isn't it?
Of course it is, and Oliver's mummy.
Indeed.
And Oliver's mummy, I'll repeat that.
Her favourite record, isn't it? Or one of them?
Yes, that's her number one holiday request. Cause
a woman of taste, obviously.
She's a bit younger than me, you see, Roger, but she keeps me on my toes.
Does she?
Yeah,
oh,
and Ollie.
Yes.
And she arranged Ollie's 21st birthday last evening, and we all went out and had a meal, and we came home and had champagne and birthday cake, and we were tad frayed at the edges today, but we got here. That's the main thing.
Fine by me. You got a Stone story to tell me, haven't you?
Oh, God, yeah, 1962. My girlfriend bought me Moon River for Christmas. My parents were at the RAF, and I was banished to Millet's shop doorway with my harmonicas. And this particular... It was the coldest winter in history. Snow, and
it was a cold winter.
Yeah, I was stuck in Millet's shop doorway, and in the end the rain and the wind came in, and I ventured down Sutton High Street, and a couple of school chums were outside this pub called the Red Lion. And they said, hey, Ben, they called me. Jeff Beck used to call me Ben, I don't know why. There's a band on there, not very good, come and have a look. But they're playing harmonica. So I went up the back of the Red Lion, and there were 3 chaps, 2 with guitars, 1 with a harmonica, and over in the corner was an old Sunday school chum, Ian. And we both had to go to Sunday school at St Andrew's Church in Cheam. Well, the guys playing the guitars and things knocked off, and I went up to Stu, and I said, hiya, Stu. He said, whatcha, Ben? He said, what are you doing here? I said, oh, it's nice and warm in here. Bloody freezing. I've been playing harmonica. I said, it was beyond heaven when I saw that chap in your band play into a microphone. Could I have a go? He said, yeah, go on, I'll play along with you. And he turned the amp on, and I was da-da-da-da when I was a little boy, da-da, at the age of 5. And the band came back from their break and played along with me. And we did a couple of songs, and I thanked them, and I just wanted to watch this guy playing his harmonica, but I'd had a go. That was it. I was hooked. I went back the next week, and I did 3 tunes. They weren't there the next week, but Ollie and I decided I was going to collect in my corporate time, I was going to collect every Rolling Stones single on Decca with Brian Jones, and I've got them. Mint first issues, and the 3 EPs, and every album, right the way up to A Bigger Bang. I got the first, and I was 1 short, Roger, and it was Street Fighting Man on 45.
Which I played tonight. No, I didn't play. I played Let It Bleed.
You played Gimme Shelter.
That's right.
Which Ollie has on his phone as his answer tone, the beginning of that. So, oblige me. The story comes forward, excuse me, 45 years. So, and I've got all their singles, I've got all their albums, and I've got their 3 Decca EPs, all in mint with lovely new sleeves. And
worth a few quid.
They cost a few quid. So Ollie and I were we go rooting round all these second-hand record shops. We're in heaven.
Reddington's Rare Records?
Yeah. The best one is Rolling Records in West Wickham.
Really?
Oh, Steve and his good wife Kim. He had Street Fighting Man. I said, I'm on the way. Because, to have a whole set, beautiful copy. And we were in there causing a bit of a hoo-ha. And Ollie and I drove home, and Oliver said to me, I was waiting for you to correct me there, Roger. He said, Dad, you didn't really thank him enough. I said, well, I gave him £30. And so I said, okay, and I had hands-free in the car, and I rung him up. And he said, Henry, I didn't know you were in the Rolling Stones. I said, nor did I. He said, do you know Pete La-di-da? And I said, yeah, he's bass player in the Grebels. He did the Richmond Festival with us, with the Authentics, and the Stones were top of the bill. He said, well, he said you were in the Stones. Give him a ring. He's not very well. So I said, okay, and I rang him up. He said, yeah, Pete, Henry, do you remember coming into the Red Lion that Monday night Or was it a Wednesday? And I said, yeah, but he said, that was the Rolling Stones before Bill and Charlie joined. And I said, no. So every year we go on holiday, and I often take Bill Wyman's Stone Alone. I think that's the best document, apart from the new Keith Richard. And I looked in it, and in the back is a list of all their gigs. And sure enough, before Bill Wyman and and I played with the Rolling Stones. Isn't that wonderful?
I think but what a fine band they were in the early... I mean, they still are, but I mean, they were at their best, I thought.
You bet. Do you know the Auberge Coffee Lounge on Richmond Hill? And actually, can I just go very quick to end that story? The reason how I could do a date check of when it was I played was because Moon River was in the charts, and so was Take 5, and that's what Mary bought me for Christmas, you see. So I looked on the chart book, and sure enough, 1962, and that was how I knew that it was the Rolling Stones and the Red Lion, and I put the dates together because those records were in the chart. Do you see, when I played with them? Auberge Coffee Lounge, Eric Clapton, Paul Jones, Gene Shrimpton, Charlotte Bingham. Everybody congregated there in their candy striped jackets and their new attire, and 5 Park Drive, and we were all there. And then, at about 6 o'clock, we'd all walk down to the station hotel, and we'd be in there with the Rolling Stones. The girls used to go up to the bar and order big pints of water and just tip it over them and back into the throng. And when they played that Do the Crawdaddy, one night, the Authentics, we were supporting them, and the Stones and the Beatles came down to check them out, you know. John Lennon was as near as that. I could smell the leather on his coat. And he said, effing nice. Chewing gum. Right there he was. He thought we were the Stones.
Oh, fantastic.
That was fantastic.
So, what about, you've worked with the Everly Brothers as well, haven't you, in your studio days?
Well, they came in with Dave Edmunds to record... They Did You Send Me, the Sam Cooke song. I just used to come down into the tea room there at Eden in Chiswick, and one day it would be Wham, another day it would be Duran Duran, who were the worst band we ever recorded, and probably the best was Shaky.
Oh, yeah, lovely man.
He used to turn up in a Cortina, right? Yeah. And all his fans would be outside the gates, and he would press the button, and the window would go down his Cortina, and they'd all give him, you know, presents and things, and he'd get all dressed up to go out there, and he's Elvis. He's Loving You. Yeah. And the band would turn up with Gary Watkins on lead guitar in a clapped-up old van, dragging in the exhaust. You know, nobody cared about them. They played on Gary played on some of the Everly stuff with Albert. Oh, right. And the thing was, my girlfriend came to see them, and as you know, Phil hasn't got any hair now, and he wears a wig. Oh, right. And she said, why are you wearing a hat? And I thought, oh, what a thing to say, you know. And Tom Petty.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Love that.
I know you like him. You were eulogising about him on your show. See, I do listen.
I know, obviously.
I hope you get him on before you...
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. That'd be a joy, actually. Even if it's on the phone, I don't mind. So... What now? I mean, Oliver's graduated, so you don't need to support him anymore. He can support you.
Well, we doesn't come into the equation.
He gave me a look then. No, he didn't like that.
No, Ollie's Ollie. You know, Oliver is Oliver. We're a 3-part team.
So are you going back to being a rock and roll rebel now?
No, I'm not. What we're doing is we're here. One of the reasons we're here, and what we're doing this week is he's been my little foot soldier, running around Radio 1 and Radio 2 and Capital, and we're learning how everything's done again. Because I've come out of corporate life. We came back from holiday last year, and I was given an award by this company. I won't mention their name. They're American. I was there for 10, 12 years. Top of the, you know. And they gave me a silly medal and a plaque for getting an Olympic contract or something. Henry, come through here. How old are you? And I said, well, I'm 68 this year. And they said, oh, well, we got to retire you. So I said, you're joking. So I found myself with no company car, so I had no claims.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. And no phone. Just bugger off, dear boy, sort of thing. Horrible, horrible people.
Happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, but what a vile thing. They said, appeal, we'll take you back. I thought, no.
Yeah.
So after a week, I was chewing the carpet. You know, now I work for a fabulous company called Brighton Couriers.
Yeah.
And if you've need anything in that area, use them. I do all the bases. I was at Bryce
No
Norton.
commercials here,
Oh,
please.
sorry. But they're brilliant. I was at Bryce Norton today, and they were showing me the atomic bomb shelters, because that's where the atomic bomb
Oh, right.
parts were kept.
But are you going back to gigging? You must be. No.
Well, no. What I want to do is Ollie. I know I was at
Oliver.
school with Oliver. I was at school with Jeff. I was at school with Jimmy Page. He lived in Mars Road, Epsom. Jimmy lived in Domains Road. Jeff lived in Domains Road, Wallington, and I lived in Cuddington Way, Cheam. And the best guitarist I have ever come across is sitting next to me.
Oh, really?
He is, and he's got a great voice, and he writes great songs, and he's in no hurry.
Where do you get that from, then?
I don't know. He's better than I ever was, although I was pretty good. But no, we're on a learning curve. You know, we're going out, we're learning what the business is about, and we're writing songs, and we go abroad. We're off to the south of France for 2 or 3 weeks, and we just drift around.
Good. Lovely seeing you.
Oh, it's a dream. This is one of my ambitions achieved. I'm not just saying that. And there are a lot of people.
You're very sweet. Very sweet.
Like Dick Taylor. He said, I heard you on Roger Day. He was at the, where was he? Cranley Arts thing they were playing. And he said, I heard you on Roger Day. He said, what a bloke. And they played live, didn't they?
They did.
Got it.
Marvellous. Henry, and good
Thank
to meet
you.
Oliver as well.
Thank you.
And
Thank
good
you.
luck. Lovely to catch up. All right. See, I'm going to play this one with a daft title. It's called He's Taken Sheila Off His Windscreen, which is a classic of all time. I thought I had to play that. It's right up my street, that is. There you go.
Everybody knew that Sheila was a girl. When she was loaded, she put herself about. No way was she gonna be changed. Hey, he really loved her, and though he was hurt, he never showed it. Just punched her in the mouth. She'd say, "Oh, you're so strong, babe." She's gone too far this time. It's really the end of the line. Oh boy, what does it mean? Oh boy, he's taken Sheila off his windscreen. He's taken Sheila off his windscreen. He's torn her name right off the sunstrip. He's taken Sheila off his windscreen. He's taken Sheila off his windscreen. It's Cortina's such a lonely sight without Sheila on the windscreen David took to heavy drinking one night. He took a beating, staggered from the curb, driving much too fast now. Suddenly there is Sheila, arms open wide. She runs to greet him. Oh no, too late to slow. What's he gonna do now? He's opening the car door now. Oh boy, what does it mean? Oh boy, he's taken Sheila off his windscreen. He's taken Sheila off his windscreen. He's torn her name right off the sunstrip. He's taken Sheila off his windscreen. He's taken Sheila off his windscreen. When he drives now, he drives alone. He'll not replace her with another one.
like songs with a sense of humour, and that was called "He's Taken Sheila Off His Windscreen." Do you remember those windscreens you used to have where they used to have, like, Sharon and Dave on there? And I often thought, yeah, that's great now, but what happens if you split up with them? You know, you could never sort of go out, and then this other woman would say, well, who's this girl that you got on the windscreen then? I suppose it could have been worse, could have been a tattoo. 'Cause you do get people, don't they, have their wives or girlfriends tattooed, and then they get divorced. I mean, you can get tattoos removed, I suppose, but sounds a bit painful to me, so there you are. Anyway, thanks to Henry Turtle. You might not have heard of him before, but I knew you'd like his stories, and he's got a load more. Has he written a book yet? He should do. Anyway, Henry Turtle, it's called Cover Shots, and you can get it at www.henryturtle.co.uk. What about these things he said about me? I was flushing with embarrassment there, but there you go. I enjoyed it.
Travel.
BBC Across the South.
And here's the ladies from Craig.
Hi there, Roger. Not too much going on roads-wise, actually. There were reports of people...